Hi everybody, Melissa Best here. We're going to do our lab number 3. Just want to let you know, Melissa Best. It's the 25th of March for AMP2, lab number 3 for the vascular system. I hope you can see that because in my view it is backwards. I want to start with the carotid arteries. Number 1 here, I have the right common, sorry, moving my papers. There we go. Number 1 is the right common carotid artery, and number 2 is the left common carotid artery. The carotid arteries, they originate from posterior to the sternoclavicular joints, and in the neck, they are contained with the choroid sheath posterior to the sternocleidomastoid muscle. Your left common carotid artery arises from the aortic arch, while your right common carotid artery arises from the brachiocephalic artery. Moving forward, here we are. The number 1 here, we have the right subclavian artery. And then number 2, over here, we have the left subclavian artery. The right subclavian artery starts at your brachiocephalic artery. Your left subclavian artery starts at your aortic arch. So this is the aortic arch down here. For number 2, is going to be the left subclavian artery, in which starts at the aortic arch right here. And then right here is going to be the brachiocephalic artery, where it starts at. And they travel away from the middle of our bodies between our anterior and middle scalene muscles. Awesome. All right, the heart. There we go. Number 1 on here is the aorta. Number 2 we'll see here is going to be the right pulmonary artery. Number 3 is going to be the left pulmonary artery. The aorta is the largest vessel within our human body. It originates from the left ventricle of the heart anterior to, can you see that picture? Yes, okay. From the left ventricle to the heart anterior to the pulmonary artery, prior to it arching posteriorly and descending along the posterior mediastinum. The aorta begins at the left ventricle of the heart and extends upward into the chest to form a nice, beautiful little arch. And then it continues downward into the abdomen. And if I drew it more down, you'll be able to see it. All right. My little man here. Please don't mind those. I was using marker paint. It's not blood, but it just adds to the effect, I guess. Okay, so number 1 here, we have the brachiocephalic trunk right here. I just wanted to give an overview picture of pretty much what it looks like with the heart, the right carotid, left carotid, the subclavians. So the brachiocephalic trunk originates from its horizontal position, as we see here, at the height of the upper edge of the second rib, anterior to the trachea and right recurrent nerve, posterior to the brachiocephalic vein, which we'll get to. Its trajectory is cephalic and curved laterally to the right. Very nice, next little beautiful picture here. Number 1, here we have the posterior external jugular vein. Number 2, here we have the external jugular vein. And then number 3 right here, there we go. Number 3, we have the internal jugular vein. The external jugular vein courses superficially to the obliquely across the sternocleidomastoid muscle and the superficial fascia. Part of its descent in the neck is also along the posterior border of the sternocleidomastoid muscle in its lower excuse me, third within the carotid sheath on either side of the neck. It extends from the base of the skull to the sternal end of the clavicle. Here. The function of the internal jugular vein, I hope you can still see it, is to collect blood from the skull, brain, superficial parts of the face, and the majority of the neck. The tributaries of the internal jugular include the inferior posterior petrosal sinus, facial, lingual, pharyngeal, superior, and middle thyroid, and occasionally the occipital vein. Again, please don't mind the spots. I was using marker paint and it leaked. Adds the effect. Number 1 here, we have the right subclavian vein. And number 2 here, we have the left, subclavian vein. Our right subclavian vein and left subclavian vein are run just under our collarbone on each side of our body, as you see here. They receive oxygen poor blood from our axillary veins and carry it into our brachiocephalic veins. Is it for that. All right, moving forward, the superior vena cava is right here, part of the heart that I only drew a portion of. The superior vena cava terminates in the superior portion of the sinus venerum, a quadrangular, smooth-walled space posterior to the crista terminalis, and receives both of the superior and inferior vena cava. The orifice of the superior vena cava lies, directly postlaterally to the auricle of the right atrium. So imagine the heart is right here, and this is the right atrium over here. Awesome. We had to choose a disease for this lab. Don't mind my laundry in the back. The one that I wanted to choose was heart valve diseases. So our heart can't effectively pump blood throughout our body, and it has to work harder to pump while we have heart valve disease, either while the blood is leaking back into the chamber of the heart or against a narrowed opening. This can lead to heart failure, sudden cardiac arrest, and that's when the heart stops bleeding altogether, which obviously leads to death. If it goes undiagnosed and untreated properly and promptly, heart valve problems can lead to arrhythmia, infections, and even hypertension in the lungs, and heart failure, or like I said, cardiac arrest. The physical signs of heart valve disease would be chest pain, palpitations, that would be rapid rhythms or skipping beats of the heart, shortness of breath, difficulty catching our breath, fatigue, weakness, inability to maintain regular activity level. This also can coincide with lightheadedness or fainting, swollen ankles, feet, or swollen abdominal area. So it's very important that we stay healthy, don't smoke. And a good tip is that the heart is a muscle. So it needs to be worked. So when we do cardio for working out, you are working out your heart, which is a muscle, which helps with any other heart diseases or any other conditions leading with the heart. So, just treat it like any other muscle in your body and it will treat you well. Thank you so much.